Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Amityville Union Free School District Work Session Meeting, April 3rd, 2024. I'm calling the meeting to order at 5:38 p.m. Present at the meeting is myself, the President, Lisa Johnson, First Vice President, Jim Santos, Second Vice President, Carol Seahawk, Trustee Juan Leon, Superintendent, Dr. Gina Talbot, Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Joan Lang for Curriculum Instruction, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Dr. Bridget Wade, Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operation, Ms. Olivia Watsi, as well as our District Clerk, Melissa Dernan. Also present is Council John Sheenan. At this time, at 5:39 p.m., can I have a motion to go into executive session for advice from council, as well as particular person's employment history?
So moved.
Jeanette Santos is first, Carol Seahawk is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 4-0. It will resume open approximately at 7:30 p.m. Thank you.
Welcome to the Amityville Union Free School District Work Session Meeting, April 3rd, 2024. I'm calling the meeting to order at 7:30 p.m. The Board of Education met in executive session earlier this evening for advice from council, as well as particular person's employment history. At this time, please note the exit clearly marked. Take a moment to silence your cell phone, and please join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Talbot, I'm going to turn the meeting over to you at this time.
Thank you, President Johnson, and good evening to our board members, colleagues, and to our community. We do have some opening remarks that we would like to share with you following a presentation on our budget revenues for next year by Ms. Olivia Buatsi. So as we have been, it's imperative that we continue to address our school budget situation. Despite diligent efforts, we still face a significant shortfall of $4.6 million from 2023-24 to 24-25. We are actively collaborating with our elected officials to explore revenues for immediate revenue enhancement to bridge this gap. As we eagerly anticipate updates regarding additional revenue, it's important to acknowledge that we still contend with a significant 6.86% increase from budget to budget. This disparity underscores the gravity of our financial situation and the pressing need for decisive action. We must remain vigilant and proactive in exploring all available options to mitigate the budget gap. We are committed to settling contractual obligations with our collective bargaining units, which must be honored. Unfortunately, our fund balance and reserves are currently low, amplifying the urgency of our financial predicament. In light of these circumstances, we must candidly acknowledge the pressing need for additional funding. Tough decisions loom ahead, whether to surpass the cap or enact further reductions. These deliberations are fueled by the minimal uptick in state aid and the expiration of federal funds, exacerbating our financial strain. We want to thank you and assure you that we are committed to transparent communication and prudent fiscal management as we navigate these challenges together. At this time, Ms. Olivia Buatsi will share with us tonight an overview of revenues as we look to the 24-25 school year.
Thank you very much, Dr. Talbot. Can everyone hear me? Thank you. Before I start talking about the revenues, I just want to give a brief recap as to where we are on the expense side of the budget. As you can see on this slide, we are looking at about 7.7% increase, budget to budget increase. This is where we stand at this point in time. And you can see the much of that is due to program cost. We are required by the state to split the budget into 3 components: administrative, program, and capital. And you can see that the program component, which is all our instructional expenses, including labor costs, is embedded here. So how do we, and where are the big areas? This slide further breaks it down. As you can see, it is the same thing here. Regular instruction is going up by about 1.8 million, special education 3.3 million, and this is all contractual expenses, including employee benefits. So we are facing a big challenge here, as Dr. Talbot alluded to. So the question is, how do we fund the budget? There are 4 main areas where our revenues are derived from: school taxes, state aid, other revenues, and reserves. School taxes, I'm going back, sorry. School taxes makes up the largest percentage, and this is what is capped by the tax cap law. And so if you go to the calculation of the cap, where are we? You can see, I'll be going back and forth. We are saying that based on the tax cap, we can only go up by $1.9 million if we are to stay within the cap. And how do we derive that? It is a formula that is given to us by New York State. You take last year's tax levy of $63,804,000 and multiply it by what is called quantity change. This is a number that is given to us by the New York State Department of Finance, and this is brick and mortar project, and each school district has its own number. Then you add pilots. Pilots are payment in lieu of taxes, and this includes Grayburn. These are properties that are currently not on the tax roll, but they were given exempt status, which they are given preferential treatment. And then after some time, they put them back on the tax roll. You add the pilot from the prior year and then subtract any debt service. Debt service is any mortgage that we have from last year. Then you now multiply it by 2% or the CPI. So when they talk about the 2% tax cap, it is not really 2%, but other factors such as the tax-based growth factor is included in the calculation. Then you subtract tax pilot receivable for the subsequent year, and that's what is called all the taxes before exclusion, and the exclusion refers to the debt service, as I mentioned before. Court-imposed tort action is, most school districts don't face this because it has to be over 5%. Then you add back the debt service, and this year, in a very long time, if your pension cost, which is TRS, Teachers Retirement System, or ERS, which is Employee Retirement System, exceeds 2% growth in any 1 year, you are permitted to add it to your levy. This year, the number came out to be $8,161, and that is for the Employee Retirement System piece only, not TRS. So based on that calculation, our tax levy increase, based on the calculation, if we are going to remain within the cap, will be 3.077. Now, what other sources of revenue do you have? State aid. I got a question a few minutes ago about universal pre-K. Universal pre-K is usually run as part of our state aid. So in order to calculate how much real estate aid you have to subtract it because it's a grant. It is not part of your state aid.
Just move the mic a little closer. Please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so our universal pre-K grant is $582,496. So the net amount is the state aid that we will receive. And the district is on a formula. The state has not passed the budget yet. We expect that to happen any moment from now. But this information was supplied to us by our state aid specialists, and they are telling us that based on the formula, our state aid will be going up just about $900,000 this year. So that restricts us in terms of our revenues to fund the budget. So what other revenues do we get? Pilots, as I mentioned before, and we also have what is called the LIPA pilot. LIPA was given special status years ago, and it's also that every school district received LIPA pilot based on the LIPA properties located within the district. Then we have day school tuition, foster child tuition, health services, interest earnings. When we receive our property taxes, we invest the money, and this is all approved instrument that we invest in. And we believe that based on the current interest rate environment, we'll be getting about $400,000 next year. So you can see that we projected $200,000 more in the 24-25 school year. So pretty much all the other sources of revenues remain the same. So what are we looking at? If you compare the projected revenues to the appropriation, which is the expense side of the budget, the delta that we are talking about is a $4.6 million. And that's what Dr. Talbot mentioned during her introduction. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Boazzi. So a couple of questions that I have. I'm not sure if we've explored some of these things or if these things are not possible. I know that we're going to try to find some efficiencies with our busing.
Yes.
Is there any kind of idea or timeline when we might have an updated cost if we find those efficiencies with the busing? And also if we're going to reduce our after-school buses from, I believe, 3 to 1. Is there any idea when that could be seen as a number on a presentation?
We've met with the bus company 2 times, and it's all depends on the routing that is done. It is a complex kind of a system, and it's also based on the bell schedule that we have in each of the schools. We currently have about 31 buses that piggyback on each other. The same high school buses go back. They drop the kids, go to Park Avenue, and bring the kids to school, and then go to Northwest. So the timing is very important. 10 minutes is really a long time for bus transportation. So they have to work all the logistics out to make sure that we can get the kids to school on time based on the bus schedule and be able to realize the efficiencies that you're talking about. It is a complex system. We met with them. They came back with their analysis, and so far, we did not see significant savings on the proposals that they brought to the table.
You, you
You
just need to
use
speak
your
into
mic.
a mic. As he's getting ready to speak, I think the other thing to just keep in mind, when this was brought up at a previous meeting, I don't think we went into this detail, but if, and the key is, if this was considered, and this is a big if, we would need the time to, number one, communicate with the employees of the district,
Correct,
right? Because that means it would change their arrival and departure time.
correct,
They all have personal lives,
correct.
and that would impact them. The parents or guardians of the kids within the district, their schedule of going to work or whatever it may be depends on the start and end time of school. So it's something that if the route were changed, it's not going to occur this year because it would require all those individuals to be communicated with and everyone to understand that this is what would happen. So it's something that we'll be continuing to look at. It may not take place for this year, but if we find that it'll be a significant decrease in what the cost of busing would be, then that would allow ample time for communication with all stakeholders within the district. They would understand or come to agreement that this is what will be happening. So
Yes.
just, so I'm sorry, Mr. Chris, go ahead.
Justin, you actually said what I was going to say. But what I'd like to add is also that, yes, these are complicated matters that will take time to resolve or untangle. So if there are any savings in this area, it'll probably happen during the school year, 24-25. And there is where you're going to see the impact of these savings. So while it will not help currently because the budget will be adopted sometime this month, certainly from a fund balance standpoint, you'll probably see those impacting the bottom line at the end of 24-25.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can I just jump in again?
Sure.
So, Mr. Frazier, you're saying that if there is any change, we would see that in the next budget cycle.
This, yes, 24-25.
Right, but now I'm getting confused because, did I not hear this all right? Olivia, you said you reached out to the bus company and you said that there were not significant savings.
Yes.
So,
But we keep talking because when it comes to bus routing, it is individualized. And like the president also mentioned, when you are making those changes, we also have to look at our employees and how it affects them. So we've spoken to the bus company. We've not spoken to our employees. So all those logistics have to be tied together to come to a conclusive decision as to which way we want to go in order to reduce cost. Because anything that you do affects somebody else.
That's correct. And I'm not saying that that's not correct. What I'm saying is that, have you gone through the scenario of what if, I mean, look, reducing 3 after-school buses to 1, there has to be a savings there, right?
Absolutely. And we've
So-
actually
so what-
done that.
So what is considered not a significant savings?
So I
Even
can,
that scenario, so
Mhm.
go
I
ahead.
can elaborate on that just a little bit further. We've been having a series of meetings with the bus companies, and we've been discussing various scenarios with the hopes of finding savings for the 24-25 school year. And we have found some minimal savings for the 23-24 school year. So for example, Olivia alluded to having 31 buses conducting morning routes on behalf of Amityville students in district and out of district. In order to reduce that by 5 buses in the morning route, we have to extend our bell schedules an additional 10 minutes. We're putting the final touches on that, and they are putting the final touches on what that would look like for us financially. We had hoped, of course, that we could reduce the number of buses by a larger number. But based upon the needs that we have, it will only reduce the fleet by 5 buses. And so they are finalizing what that would look like for us in terms of financial savings. Surely it's not as much as we would like. We have also talked about shared services with neighboring districts to consolidate in that manner. We've also talked about ridership on late buses throughout the district and weighing the pros and cons of readjusting those schedules so that we will capture more ridership, perhaps with less buses doing duplicate services. So there are several scenarios that we're looking to hear back, but even in speaking with them, the cost of busing is going up 2.5% for the 24-25 school year.
Correct.
Inflation has hit the transportation department as it has with health insurance and other entities. So transportation is one aspect, and we should have very soon what that savings would look like for us for next year.
And to add to what Dr. Talbot just said, we have to separate big buses from vans because the vans are used primarily to transport special education or kids who need one-to-one transportation or kids in outplacement. And that determination is not done until the end of the year. So unless you know the schools that the kids are going to, you could have a lot of savings on the large buses, but when it comes to the big buses, small vans, it is very difficult so you can have significant savings on one and still incur a lot of costs on the other. So it's the logistic, it is the whole thing that has to come together. So to say that you are going to have XYZ amount of savings at this time of the year could be a little bit challenging.
All right. So the reason why I brought that up is because to comply with the New York State tax cap, we still have to find some savings.
Correct.
So I'm trying to find anything here.
Yes,
Yes.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. Thank you
Um,
very much. Yes.
If it's all right, Madam President, I have 2 more questions regarding the budget. I'm not sure if this is a question for Olivia or for the superintendent, but I know that the whole litigation that's pending with the name Warriors, is there any way to ask New York State for an extension, of us using $300,000 to $400,000 to remove Warriors from our high school bleachers and our brand new gym floor. I mean, New York State knows the financial predicament that we're in. If they can give us an extension, that could be helpful. Is this not a possibility to ask?
So it is a conversation, and it's a very good thought to articulate with, in our conversation with legal. It did not seem probable that we were not advised to move forward with asking for a waiver. And he did cite numerous reasons why. One of them was that we've had 3 years to comply with the removal of indigenous material that the state said had to be removed. So in the budget for 24-25, what we've done is included what is required of us with the remaining removal. Those items are included with the exception of sports uniforms,
Correct.
which we have delayed to the next year's budget in order to be in we will still be in compliance
Correct.
with
What
that
we-
delay.
Yes, what we are planning to do is to phase it over time.
Mhm.
Because if we have new uniforms, it doesn't make sense for us to, throw them all away and buy new ones. So we are finding creative ways to comply with the law because we are required to, at the same time, save some money. So we cut about $36,000 from the budget, from that line.
Okay, so the reason why I bring this up again is that before the New York State Regents even came down with this ruling that we had to change it, we were already phasing out on our own without anyone to tell us. By the time that this ruling came down, we already phased out the Native American in the headdress. Now we're fighting for the name Warrior. So all I'm saying is extra money would be good.
Thank you.
So, you bring up a very good point, Ms. Leon. I think it's something that can always be asked, but our understanding what legal had shared as well as what has occurred in other school districts in the state of New York, they have not been successful in any of the lawsuits to even keep the names, whatever the name is. Some have already removed different, like the headdress, for example, but no school district in New York State has been successful just to keep the name. So it's something that we can ask, but I'm not too sure if we'll be successful in it. I know in terms of on March 26th, we did call a special meeting and we presented 3 different scenarios. And one of the scenarios that we have presented, but the board said no to it, which was to do a bond. And that was scenario number 3. So when we met on the 26th, the reason that we did meet, and Dr. Talbot, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that there was a timeline that we had to meet in order for anything to go on the ballot for the election year. So
Correct.
it has to be a proposition for it. So the school board cannot just say we want to go out for a bond. It has to be part of a proposition. So we presented 3 different scenarios on that particular night. One was to leave everything alone, which was the 2.5 million that was moved from the capital reserves over to capital projects. And that was approved by the voters. And then there was another 1.3 million last year that we said we were going to move from the budget that would go over to capital projects. And the focus was to do work on the middle school, right? So the question came up, can we take that 2.5 million that came from the capital reserves that went to the capital projects and move it back to the capital reserves? Could we take that 1.3 that we had in the budget and move that back from the capital projects back to the budget? And if we did, what would be the implication? So when we looked at scenario number 3, that was looking at a bond, because that was one thing the
Yes.
board said no to that.
Yes.
Scenario number 1 was to leave everything alone, don't do anything.
Okay.
But then scenario number 3 was, well, can we can we do that? Can we move the 2.5 million back as well as move the 1.3 back? And part of, that was not voted on, part of when we met that night, part of the situation was that we also did not have the information, because when we put it on the ballot, we now have to revise the work that would be done to the middle school.
Correct.
And so if the proposition is placed on the ballot, then the voters would say, okay, well, we want to move the money back, but if we move the money back, now what are you going to do?
Yes.
And so that information needed to be provided as well. And one of the things that with scenario number 2, the hope was that, can we move it back and could it bring potentially teachers back? And I think when it was presented on that particular night, it was stated that not only teachers, but employees in the district that were excess, could we bring any employees back from that money? And the answer was no, we would not be able to bring anyone back. So that, excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry. So that was one of the things with the 1.3, if we brought that back to the general fund, we would be able to use that money to bring any teachers, any employees back that were excess. And unfortunately, we would not be able to do that. It would just be in the general fund account.
Yes.
So that was another thing that we looked at. We are at a dilemma in terms of, if we cut other things, now we're going to be, if we cut programs, now we're going to be affecting our students more. So if we cut programs, then you're going to affect the students, you're going to affect employees of the district as well. So we're looking, and that's just the only thing I'm saying, but I don't want to affect our children's education either. So that's just my comment. So any other board members have anything else to say about the presentation?
President Johnson, my third question was actually what you were just discussing, because I wasn't able to make it to the last meeting. Something I don't understand, and maybe it can be explained to me, is the way I understand it now is that we are going to bond for 1.7.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
That was one of the votes.
There were 3 choices, like
Okay.
President Johnson explained. The first choice was do nothing, leave everything as is, and the project continues as was approved by voters last year. The second choice was to bring the transfer to capital back into the general fund, into the fund balance. And that will require us to go back to taxpayers. We have to resize the project. We have to go to the architect have to resize the project. And, okay, good. The architects will have to resize the project. And we have to get approval from voters to be able to do that. And that was not something, and we have a timeline, because in order to put it on the proposition, we have to advertise it beginning this week. And it has to go into the district designated papers. And the timing wasn't enough for us to do that. The last one was to use the $2.5 million from capital reserve will be used for the project. In addition to that, we will go back and bond on up to $1.7 million.
That's what I just said.
Yes, no, that was one of the 3 choices,
Right.
which was not approved last week.
Okay.
Mr. Seoff, just speaking to the mic, because no one can hear you, just.
So
to bring it closer.
is there an option? So is there an option here to ask the voters to bring this money back, just so we can add it to our fund, because our fund is basically depleted, and put a hold on the project to see until our finances get better? Is that an option?
So, Mr. Leon, that was one of the discussions that occurred, and that has to be part of a proposition, as Ms. Pawazzi had just stated. So could we reconsider that again? Yes, we could, but that means we would have to have a special election to vote on that in order to do it. So it won't be part of the budget in May. If it's something that we want to do down the line, we would have to do a special election in order to do it. And if we did it, we would be more informed in terms of what that project would look like at the middle school, because to ask the community, can you move the money back can you move the money back? Then people need to know what we're going to be doing. So is it something that we still could consider doing? Yes, but it won't be part of this budget in May. So yes, it can still be considered, but we have to have a special election to do it.
Okay, well, I think, I mean, if we already voted on our option going forward, I guess that's what it is, but any kind of idea to just get positive money into our funds, and then we can relook at the project in a year or so, it might be helpful, especially to get us off of the, the New York State designation list, because one of the key questions they ask are, how much cash do you have? So, something to think about.
You just bring the mic close, because if you, yeah, thank you.
I'm just sitting here thinking, and
Just bring
I-
it even closer.
I was just wondering, is there a possibility that we can check into the busing company? Perhaps if we look at another company, it might be cheaper. Because I think this company that we're using has a monopoly on, it's like they have a something on us that we have to use them. I don't think we have to use them. I think we should be looking into a cheaper company,
Yes,
a company that will give us, that will be less what we need to do. What you said, 31 buses?
yes, we have
Perhaps
about,
another
no,
company?
and we have a lot of vans also. We have an outstanding contract with them. I think we are in year 4 or 5. So those are some of the things that we'll be looking at when the contract expires. But it is a very difficult for those of us, and Carl can add to it, those of us who have done that before. It is not an easy thing
I know.
to maneuver with the bus companies, because they all have they all know how they operate.
Sure.
That's how best I can describe it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does any other board member have any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
All right, so before, I'm sorry, Dr. Talbot, is anything else you'd like to say? Okay. So before I do community input, on agenda items only, I just need to bring to the community's attention that there will be an amendment in the agenda. So under 2C3, the agenda will be amended to add the ATA MOA retirement incentive for 23-24. So at that time, I will read the resolution. So please note that the agenda will be amended to add 2C3, which is the ATA Memorandum of Agreement Retirement Incentive for 23-24 school year. So at this point in time, we will take community input regarding any agenda items.
Hello, my name is Caroline Fanning, 12 Commerce Boulevard. Thank you, Ms. Boazzi, for the presentation. Just to cut it short, am I to understand that the budget that's up for a vote on the 16th has a $4.6 million deficit baked into it?
Dr. Talbot, is that something you can answer, please?
As it stands right now, the budget that we are discussing is over the tax levy of 3.07, 3.07, which equals about 4.6 million.
So I'm a beginner, so bear with me. we're already asking to raise the levy to 3.07, which is above what we normally do. And even doing that, we still have a deficit of 4.6 million. Is that correct?
The budget is over by 4.6 million.
Okay. And in addition to that, with all the excessing that just happened, going back to 2022, 2023, did we plug that hole and now we're looking ahead to the next hole?
So what has taken place thus far is that as a district, we had to deal with last year's over expenditure of 3.6 million. So the reductions that have taken place to date addressed last year's deficit of 3.6 million.
Okay, so we're at a balance of 0 with all those teachers gone.
And so now from 2023-24 budget to a proposed 24-25 budget, we're at a delta of 4.6 million.
Delta meaning deficit.
How would you describe that?
Just speaking to the mic if anyone talks.
To-
A negative
Essentially the
change. A negative change.
You have to speak into the mic, please.
There, let me,
And this
Expand
sounds
a
like
little more.
semantics, like we're still 4.6 in the hole looking ahead.
well,
We still haven't recovered from being 3.6 in the hole behind. Okay, I think I have my question answered. I just want to make sure that was clear because it wasn't totally clear to me. It was a little unbelievable, but okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Wendy Canestro. Wow. I thought it was 3.6, but now I guess it's 8.2 million. We're really in the hole. And I heard those numbers floating around and I didn't have any confirmation of it and I didn't believe it, but I certainly believe it's sitting here today. A couple of things, Mr. Leon, I wish you would have been here at the last meeting to ask these questions. That's why attendance is so important at board meetings. You would have had a voice and a vote at the last meeting for propositions.
Well, I think it's the only meeting I've missed.
So,
I'm not challenging you about
So
any
can we-
meetings. I'm
can
just
we
saying it would
just-
have
can we
been
just stay
great
to
to
the
have you
questions,
ask those
please?
questions then.
can we just stick to the
Sincerely,
questions? Thank you.
sincerely, I'm saying it would have been nice. Okay, a couple of things that I just want to bring up. You talked about transparency. Again, can't believe it comes out of your mouth, but what was transparent about this budget meeting? It wasn't on the budget, a schedule that was put out and published. So what lengths did this Board of Education district make to let people know that this was actually, there was going to be a budget meeting tonight? Did you send emails to everybody? Did you send phone calls, connect eds?
Dr. Talbot, can you respond to that question, please? Are you able to respond?
So the budget, the Board of Ed meeting was announced as it normally is. Last week, the budget adoption date was extended. And so we continued making the budget presentations because we want to continue the communication with the community as to where we are. The budget presentations are posted on the website.
What notification did you give about tonight that it's a budget meeting beyond you saying that it's a regular board meeting tonight? Where did you send out an email or a phone call to tell people this is a budget meeting? This is one of the worst financial disasters in Amityville's history. What did you do to let people know this should be a meeting, a budget meeting they should attend? Where's the transparency? Did that happen?
It was
pretty-
published on the agenda that was.
Okay, the answer is no.
Posted
You're
on
talking in
yesterday.
circles. You didn't do it. Okay, second thing, fiscal responsibility. If there was fiscal responsibility all along, we wouldn't be talking about an $8.2 million deficit. That is unbelievable. That number is insane. You're talking about piercing the tax cap. That is also insane. People need to know that is not acceptable. Figure it out. I sat through every single budget meeting. The board did not trim or cut anything out of the budget. I sat here, we asked you, people came to the microphone and asked you questions. You didn't cut anything. I asked about the energy performance contract. That's almost $1 million. It's like 453,000 in principal, 508,000 in interest. I don't know what that's for. Nobody can answer me what that's for. I went back into your videos. You discussed it in executive session, which is not executive session privilege. We don't know why it was tabled. It was never voted on. I foiled for it. This entire board, the district continues to the stall tactic to not give foils in a timely manner. You do it to every single one of my foils. The community is trying to be informed so we can understand, because we can't get answers here. So we foil, and now you're delaying foils. It's problematic. Am I to understand that there won't be any universal pre-K? Because, am I understanding that correct because of the state aid, or did I not understand that correctly?
No,
Okay, so we're gonna have universal pre-K? I'm just trying to understand. You said it was deducted from the state aid
No.
or something?
What I said was, when you look at the state aid run, it includes universal pre-K.
Oh, so we'll
to
have it.
get the net amount is the state aid.
Okay, so that won't be affected, right?
I was just talking about the number. The number
Okay,
itself.
so
state
it
aid-
still stays intact?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. That's good news. As far as the busing, just a couple of things with that. The transportation
Ms.
coordinator
Canestro?
resigned.
Ms. Canestro, I'm gonna stop. There's someone else that wants to
Okay,
have a question.
but I want to
and then
say, if you change the ballot schedule, that affects the teacher's contract.
I already stated that, nothing's going to be changed right now in terms of the bell schedule. I already stated
Okay.
that. I already stated before that
It won't be this
if
year.
it was going to happen, it would not occur for this year because it would require communication with all stakeholders within the district, which includes all employees as well as parents and guardians.
Okay,
So,
because it does affect the contract. Okay, so that's all I have for now. Thanks.
thank you.
Ken Egan, 63 Forest Place. Whenever I try to ask a question, I'm always looking down the line a little bit to see what we're gonna be running into, and I think it'd be really helpful for all of us to get our hands around. What is the impact when you cancel a program in the school financially? And I know you're not gonna have an actual number, but say the music program or the wrestling team or future leaders or the coding club. Can somebody on the board just like give me like a roundabout, it saves $30,000 or $50,000 to cancel a program like that? Because I think in a year or so, with the way this is going, we're gonna have to start scaling back programs for the kids. So I'm curious if that starts happening, is that a big budget break for us? Does that help the budget out a lot or a little bit? Because we keep ignoring that part. We keep saying, oh, we don't want to lose, programming. What is the actual impact when you do, or when those programs do have to be pulled back, scaled back, changed, augmented? Does anybody have like just a roundabout amount? And I know certain programs are bigger than others, but say the music department had to shut down, or the band or the orchestra or something like that. What is the impact overall for that? I mean, just as an idea.
Dr. Talbot, do you have
I know
an
it's a huge
idea?
random question, but we keep ignoring that part, and I think it's really important because, not changing the budget, not adjusting or not taking a stab at it, we got to start figuring that out because that's going to come down the line and we're going to run into it again in a year or something. So just as an idea of like, what do you think it might be?
So, Mr. Egan, thank you for your question, and you're absolutely correct. Tough decisions have to be made about what we are going to keep and what we're going to have to let go of, even for a season. And so to answer your question, it does vary. The music department here consists of a large number of teachers. We have a large student participation. That financial impact would, of course, render more than just after-school clubs,
Right.
where teachers are given just stipends to run clubs. We have looked at and are looking at programs across the district. We're looking at what the financial impact of those programs are, as well as the academic impact. We're looking at, nothing is off the table. Nothing is off the table, which is not a good place to be.
Right, and that's what I figured, we're gonna run into it at some point, at least we can see it a year down the line, maybe we can start shifting students from one project or one program to another and let, the parents start figuring it out, because I think we need to. So maybe before the next meeting or something, we could just conceptualize the programs that are being run, if we could maybe itemize them or list them, and then maybe have an idea of what those cost to run, and then see what the impact is with the students. Maybe some programs could be shifted or merged, which could have a positive impact on the budget, but that's coming. I think that's just something we should look at.
Thank you, and we appreciate your comment.
How you doing? James Zambroni. I got a question.
Just,
for-
excuse me, just bring the mic up closer.
Sure,
Thank
sure.
you.
I got a question because I'm pretty sure everybody on the board, we all know 2 + 2 = 4, right? Who does our financial advising? The putting of you said we put our tax dollars and we invest them in things. Who does it for us?
Dr. Talbot, you I'll give the question to you and then.
Who
You are
does
paying
our,
attention?
who-
Who does?
yes, I
our
was
fin-
paying attention and
okay,
I
who
heard your
does as
question.
far- Okay,
Who does the financial advising for the district?
correct.
Your question was clear and I did hear you.
Okay.
Could you elaborate a little further
Well, I
on
would lo-
financial advising?
Right.
You
well,
mentioned
according-
investments.
According to the numbers that you put up, we got a $200,000 profit last year on the money. And this year, we're gonna get a $400,000 investment return. So if we are doubling our money from last year and getting like 100% return more, I would love to know who's handling the money, because they're making some great financial moves for the district. Correct? If you had 200,000
So
and this year you're
I'm
gonna
gonna-
get 400,000?
I'm going to ask Ms. Buatsi to elaborate on that specifically and how the multiplication of that is.
Because that's huge.
displayed
That's
for
Bernie
you.
Madoff numbers. So I would
Oh.
love to know how we're doing that.
Yes, this is the district treasurer. The district treasurer is permitted by law to invest any monies that he does not need for immediate cash flow in short-term instrument.
So we're in
CD.
a destitute situation financially, right? Where 3.6 plus 4.6 is a lot of money, a lot of zeros. And this treasurer is coming up with those kind of returns on investment?
Yes, it's all because of the way we receive the tax revenues. The tax revenues come in December through January. So at that time, when you pay your school taxes, the school district has a little bit more cash flow.
So they've never been coming that same way for the last
Yes, because
year
it's
after year
tied,
after year?
is tied to the interest rate in the market. So when the stock market, when the Federal Reserve Bank increases interest rate, we
Yeah.
also get higher interest
Do you
rate.
know what the federal interest rate is right now?
It's about 5, something like that. It used to, it
Something like
went
that.
as low as 1% or below 1%
Wait,
sometime ago.
something like that. Your job is in charge
Right,
of finance,
so-
right?
But let's.
Wait,
let
no,
me-
I'm
let
asking
me-
you a question. Is that your job? You're in charge of
So
finance?
can I,
Yeah.
can just hold on for 1 second, please? I want to make sure that everyone who's still waiting has an opportunity to ask any questions.
No, I
So
still got time. That's
no,
okay.
just, let me finish.
It's okay. I'll stick to my 3 minutes.
No, let me finish. I'm not cutting you off at all. So the question that I want to bring back around to Ms. Buatsi and related to what you're talking about, in terms of the interest and earnings that's listed here, the interest and earnings, Ms. Buatsi, does it come from several different areas and it's all collected together? So it's not one investment that occurs, but it's the interest and earnings from several different areas that,
Absolutely,
No,
Ms.
no,
Johnson, but.
but I'm
it
just,
took a-
I'm
it
just
took-
asking her.
But it took, well, you should know these answers. You're the president of the school board.
I'm just asking,
You should
I'm
know
just-
these
I'm just-
answers.
Yeah.
And
I'm
2
just
plus 2
asking-
still always equals
I'm asking the question, so therefore, not only me, but everyone else that may be listening, that it's not coming from one particular area, that it's coming from a lot of different areas, and that's why it came to mass. So that was all. Go ahead, Ms. Buatsi.
But my
The
question-
reason why I said about 5% is every bank that we deal with, because we go out and do a request for proposal, and two banks, one will give you 5% interest back, another bank will give you 5.2% back. So even though the range is very close, some banks will give you more for the investment. So you always shop around, and you know that interest rate changes by the day. So it depends on when you go to the market to request for the proposal. That's what the
So
rate of
what
return.
banks, let me ask you something then. What banks is our treasurer
Mhm.
investing the money in? Because it's a simple question. I'm really
The
curious.
banks,
As I'm sure everybody in this
Yes,
room is, because
yes,
we have money invested in different things,
yes.
but I have a large amount of distrust in the fact that that interest is going to go from 200,000
Mhm,
to 400,000.
mhm.
Because if that was the case, that treasurer would have been making the same moves last year when the interest rate and inflation was higher. And he would have been doing these things to keep us more afloat. So I'm just trying to get a grasp, because for some reason, 2 plus 2 isn't equal 4, isn't equal
Yes,
4.
and this year, if you look at our treasurer's report, our interest income, what he has been getting for this year, the earnings is higher than what we projected.
Did
So-
he make, so did he make different investments? How long has our treasurer been doing
Only
this for?
approved investment, because in New York State, you are supposed to get every investment that we put out there, it has to be collateralized at 102%. And they are highly regulated, because we want to make sure that these are taxpayer money, and it's not any kind of investment. It's not any kind of investment in the stock market that we are allowed to put our monies in.
I understand that 100%. He's got certain rules and regulations.
Correct.
I'm just trying to ascertain how or you're predicting that we're going from a $200,000 investment to a $400,000 investment.
If
That's
you, yes,
that's a huge amount. He's
Yes.
doubling the amount of the interest that we're earning.
yes,
Yes, that's your prediction. That's not,
yes,
That's your
because
prediction.
if you
so
recall,
you know exactly where
if
that.
you recall last year, in the 2022 school year, the Federal Reserve Bank raised the interest rate about 5 times. So the more that they raise interest rate, the more that we get. So even though we budgeted for the 23-24 school year, in October of 22, at that time, the Federal Reserve Bank was not
So
raising interest rate.
Is the
So
money
it's
going
always,
is the money going into a mutual fund account? Is the money going into pension fund accounts?
So
Is
Ms.
the
Ms.
money going into
Watsi,
bonds? Where is
let's,
the
let's
money
do it
going
this
is the
way.
question.
Let's, once you provide him, you want to answer Mr. Frazier, because if anything, we can provide more details and provide that and place that on the website. Therefore, all the details that he's asking, the banks,
It's all
where's it coming
taxpayer
from?
money. It's all taxes.
I think I can
investment.
clarify your question. The answer to your question. Essentially, there's two things: interest rate, which changes all the time, and how much you're investing. We borrow tax anticipation notes in lieu of receiving our tax levy.
That's not my question.
Let me
Where
fin-
is
let me
the
finish.
money?
Let him
Let me
finish,
finish.
let him
Let me
finish,
finish.
sir.
So that money that's not being used to pay bills is invested through the banks. We bought, like I said, tax anticipation notes, which are at a certain level. That money is not used, is invested through the business office, and the interest rate, depending on when it's invested, if it's higher, then you receive more interest income. So if you invest more money and the rates are higher, you get more interest income on your investments. And that's the reason why you're seeing a projected increase in the income from 200,000 to 400,000.
Okay. So that, I have companies, I invest money from my companies, whether I invest $1 million or $100,000 or $100, On a short-term investment, I'm getting 5.14% return on my money.
Right.
Okay? And that's through TD, that's through Ocean Financial Credit Union, that's through Chase Bank, that's through JP Morgan. My question is, again, what banks or who's investing? You said the treasurer.
All right,
Okay,
so-
and when we're getting a
Next question.
increase that doesn't equal 4 in an equation, I would like to understand how that's happening.
All right, so
So
Mr. Frazier,
when
what,
peop-
what,
last-
what,
last-
what we'll do is that if he's asking for that information, we have the question and we'll provide the information for him, all right? Thank you.
Margaret Chuff, Amityville. So my question has to do with agenda point 3E-1 regarding the psychiatrist. So my question is, it says that you're appointing this psychiatrist to evaluate the student's reference in confidential exhibit A. What's the head count for these students? Like, how many students is this involved for this hire? Or
Dr. Talbot, is that something that we're able to, I believe it's just one. Yeah.
You're asking for a number?
yes,
So this psychiatrist is providing services for one student at this time.
okay. So if that's one student, that to me screams, you talk about shared services. You have one student.
Yeah,
Grab
so
a
I-
psychiatrist from another district and share that. Why does it have to even be, you're hiring a person, and what's the total amount that we're shelling out for this one? I'm not criticizing the student, has nothing to do with that. I'm asking you always put these resolutions in, but you don't put a money value to it. Where's the dollar amount that this is assigned to? What's the cap? What's the goal? What's any of that?
So the dollar amount can be provided to you.
Why can't you just say it? You're putting it in a resolution. What's the figure that you're voting on? What's the cap? What's the minimum? What's anything?
Not, so it's not to exceed a certain amount, and we'll get that information to you.
Make it public. What's the figure? You're voting on it. What is the figure? We're here. Everyone needs to know you're voting on it. We'd like to discuss what the final figure is, or what the cap is, what the goal is, what's the mission, what's the scope of work? What is any of it?
For 9:30, for your question about the money, that information we can obtain, we can provide to you.
Why?
I said,
Why?
I said, we can provide that to you, the money.
But
So.
But you should be able to provide it now while you're voting on it. So it's public knowledge.
So
time,
when
in
it comes
real
to a
time.
9:13, yeah, it's something that we have to do. We don't have any control over it when it comes to 9:13. If it's something that is stated that it has to be done, we have to do it.
So have
Whatever
you
the
done
am-
it
what-
before?
Yeah, we've done 9:13.
What was the
before.
cost then?
I don't remember off the top of my head what the cost was.
Nobody
before.
knows anything. The other thing is you talk about the bus and you're changing you could be changing the routes, and you're talking about X amount of stops and all this stuff. So you go jumble it all up with the stops and the quality of life and the people and the teachers and the students, and you're affecting everybody. But you never put it, you said it's a minimalistic savings. What's minimalistic to you? What is the savings? You talk circles around all this stuff, but you never put a dollar amount to it. So if you did all this every which way to Sunday to affect all the teachers, all the kids, all the parents, all the working parents, probably putting a mile away for a bus stop, what are you saving if you implement it? What would be the savings? You're saying minimalistic. What's your value of minimalistic?
So Ms. Shuff, we told you, well, we made it plain that we were meeting with the transportation department.
Right.
And they have not released a figure. But we
So you-
did gain an understanding that we would not get an astronomical savings from these aspects that we have discussed with
Right,
them.
but when you talk
the
about savings,
adjustments
you
and the
say, well, if
changes.
we do it X way, we're saving $50,000. If we do it B, we save $85,000.
So when they provide those dollars to us, we can provide that information to
And
you.
And the last time I was up here at the podium, I had asked you for a line item of all the items that were in the budget, but you said we may not grab them, i.e. Superintendent Talbot's raise of, I don't know, $5,100, $5,000, whatever. So I had asked you for a spreadsheet of what all these numbers in the budget, proposed budget, but you're saying, well, we may not take them, i.e. your supposed raise, which I'm assuming is either contractual or merit, because if it's merit-based, you should be getting nothing. Long story short, where is that figure that you said you would provide me? Where's that piece of paper, the spreadsheet? I said I wanted to know all the figures that are in the budget, but you may not put them in. So I said, I wanted a tally of what that could amount to if you didn't put them in, i.e. $5,100 here, this, that, all those little ones. We may not take it. And you said, oh yeah, Mrs. Shuff, we'll provide that for you. Where is it?
I don't have it, Ms. Shuff. Thank you.
Are you going to provide it?
We have the note. We'll try to
You had
find
the
it.
note last time.
All right, so thank you
So
so very
then the
much. Your
next time I
is
come up, will you have it next time?
Thank you. We'll see.
Can't you? They dismiss you all the time. You think,
So
you think I'll come
please
up
do
here
not
every
call
time?
out from the audience.
Right.
Mrs. Shuff is at the
Okay.
mic.
And
I
are you going to
said
pay
to
for the
her-
geese removal this year?
I
in
said
this
to her
budget?
that we will get the information.
You're going to pay the
Ms.
$12,000
Dern,
for geese
so
removal? The guy
Your
that comes
time
and
is up,
scares,
Mrs. Shuff.
you're going to
Thank you.
scare away the geese every month for $1,000? Is that in the budget this year?
Thank you. Your time is
Yeah,
up.
okay.
I'll just take one more question on the agenda item because our time is up for agenda items. Go ahead. Excuse me, please do not yell out from the audience. Thank you. Go ahead.
Chris Nearing, 22 Cedar Street. One possible way to cut money, is there any way to just cover the logo for the like the Warrior stuff, just to kind of cover some
So,
of it and not
right-
get
right
rid of all of
now,
it right away?
It has to be completely removed. Anything, if we do not win in the lawsuit, because we're part of a lawsuit right now, if we do not win, anything that has the Warrior name, anything that has the headdress has to be removed. So could we paint something over, depending on where it's at? Like, for example, I think it's on the gym floor here still. So that's something that would have to be completely removed. So, yeah.
But even like whatever it is on the bleachers, I don't know what the,
Yeah,
off the top of my head, you can't just cover it with.
I think it all
vinyl or
depends
something
on,
like
it's a good question. I think it all depends on what the structure of that, not the structure, but how the bleachers are made. So I think they've looked at the removal versus covering up. So if it's something that can just be covered up temporarily, that's a possibility. But like, for example, and I'm not saying this is what you're referring to, but if, for example, it was painted over, that may not be enough for the state of New York. The state of New York may come in and say that you painted it over. I'm not sure. I'm just speculating. You painted it over, or you taped it over, or you covered it. That's not what we want. We want it completely gone. So it's a question that can be asked.
Right, and another question is the investing of the money. You referred to it as extra money that wasn't being used to cover costs. I don't know how we have a deficit for stuff that we haven't paid for when we are spending money elsewhere. I don't have extra money. I have not invested my money in anything because I don't have extra money to spend. So I don't know why this extra money is being spent elsewhere to invest and then not really helping the district in any way, it doesn't seem like.
Dr. Talbot, if I can give it to you, and then I'm not too sure if you want to give it to Ms. Bawatsi or Mr. Frazier.
Thank you for your question, Ms. Bawatsi or Mr. Frazier. Would you all like to further
Yes.
elaborate?
There's a difference between the.
Oh, you
cash
just have
flow-
to speak more to the
There's a
microphone.
difference between cash flow and revenues. And when you collect tax revenues come at a certain time during the year. That's what I was trying to explain. At one point, you have all the monies coming in, and then you use it over time. Tax collection occurs twice a year. In October, December, through January, and then in May. So when you look at, we always have to have a cash flow projection. When you do your cash flow projection, because we don't have monies that sit with us steadily over a period of time. That's not how we receive our tax revenue. It comes in January, and then by end of April, it goes down. So anytime that school districts have extra revenue, which is coming from the school taxes, they are permitted by law to invest it, to generate more money, to generate more cash. That's what I was talking about. It is not revenue, it is cash flow.
Okay, so if I receive my Christmas bonus, I have extra money at that time of year. I know I still have stuff that I have to pay for the rest of the year. So I know I don't just have this extra money to spend on whatever I want. I know I have to put that money towards bills that I already have or I will have in the future. So I'm still not understanding why that money
That's,
is looked at as extra.
it's not extra. It is what you have in your hands at that point in time.
Right.
The next month, you may not have that much. So you have to spread it over the next 3 or 4 months. That's how tax revenues are collected. I mean, if you want to sit with us to go over the details of how taxes are collected over the fiscal year, we'll be ready to meet with you and show you how that happens.
Right.
There's a difference between cash flow and revenue.
It's not a question of how or why the money comes in. It's why is that money being used to invest onto something when you already have stuff that you have to pay for?
When we prepare our budget and we have to strictly follow the budget, in school district, you just cannot say, because you have the monies from investment, you are going to use it to do this. It has to follow the letter of the law, what you said you were going to use the monies for. That's how the monies are used during the school year.
So it has to be used to invest in something else to like then get the $400,000 that Jim was talking about before? Is that like, that's where I'm losing it. You got money back.
I'll give you a quick example. We received tax levy money, say, late December, early January, $30 million, okay? We have bills to pay, but we're not going to spend $30 million that month. We'll spend $30 million maybe over a 4-month period. So we invest the money we don't need immediately, and that's how we generate the interest income. So it's not receiving the money now and spending it all at the same time. It's over time it's spent. So what we don't need immediately is invested.
Okay. Guess that's as much as I'll understand.
All right, thank
Thank
you. So, at this point in time, if you have a question that's related to agenda items, I'll take your question. If it's related to the budget, you can ask the question when we get to the non-agenda items. So if it's something that's not connected to the budget, but connected to agenda item, I'll take your question. But if it's a budget, I can take it afterwards. Thank you.
Hello, Megan Messman. I do want to talk about the budget, and I don't-
I'm just requesting if you can do it.
Ms. Johnson, I'm a
Afterwards.
taxpayer and a
I
parent.
understand you're a taxpayer. I'm
and
not,
I'm
I'm
very
not cut,
upset
I'm
by
not
this
cutting you
president.
off. I said that you can ask the question.
So,
at the
okay,
end.
so if it's budget only,
No, I said.
I'm sorry, agenda only, the approval of board minutes, is that for a March meeting? We don't see the minutes in what you've given us. Does it have the list of positions that were accessed, that was discussed at the March meetings?
The minutes will not have the list of the members who are going to be accessed.
Didn't you tell the positions, not
It's
the, I
gonna have
don't,
positions, yes, positions, I'm sorry.
not the employees' names. So we definitely talked
Okay,
about that.
okay, sorry.
Okay, what is the retirement incentive? Can you speak to that? The item that you added to the agenda?
I'm going to read the resolution. I cannot speak to the details of the MOA. It's something that I think could be made available if it's foiled, but I cannot speak to the details.
Okay, all right.
You're welcome. All right, so at this point in time, we're going to review the draft agenda for April 10th. All right, so there'll be another budget presentation on April 10th. The minutes will be added to the agenda, correct? Okay. And it'll be available. Any questions regarding item 3B1 or 2? Any questions regarding agenda items 3C 1A through E? All right, any questions regarding agenda items 3C2? Any questions regarding agenda item 3C3? Any questions regarding agenda item 3D1? All right, I'm going to go back to the April 3rd agenda. Can I have a motion to approve agenda item 2C2, please?
So moved.
Jeanette Santos is first.
Second.
Leslie Kretz is second. Any questions regarding the appointment of the poll workers for the library budget vote and trustee election? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Aye, motion carries 5-0. All right, can I have a motion to approve agenda item 3B1 with the exception of B2 on page 1, which will be tabled? So can I have a motion to approve the agenda item 3B1, which is the personnel action report, except for the tabling of B2, which is on page 1? Carol Seehoff is first.
Second.
Leslie Kretz is second. Any questions in regards to that agenda item? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3B2, please? Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Oh, so moved. I mean, Juan Leon,
Second.
Jeanette Santos. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. I'm going to go back on the agenda. I apologize. For agenda item, we're going to go back to 2C2, actually 2C3. So I'm going to amend the agenda to add agenda item 2C3, please. And that is going to be for the ATA memorandum of agreement retirement incentive for 23-24. So I'm requesting to amend the agenda to add agenda item 2C3. Carol Seehoff is first.
Second.
Leslie Kretz is second. All those in favor for amending the agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 2C3? Carol Seehoff is first.
Second.
Leslie Kretz is second. So agenda item 2C3 is the resolution. The Board of Education hereby ratifies a memorandum of agreement with the Amityville Teachers Association for a retirement incentive for the 23-24 school year. Any questions about this resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3E1, please? No, 3E1. Have a motion for 3E1, please. Leslie Kretz is first. Carol Seehoff is second. Any questions regarding this agenda item? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. So now I'm gonna go back to community input regarding non-board agenda items.
Hi, I just have a question about what you just voted on, the retirement incentives. So that's going to affect the proposed budget because it's a cost savings, right? So if you just voted on it, we should be able to know what is the cost savings if people are going to accept that. We're not asking for the names, we're asking for the cost savings.
We, at this point in time, we don't know the cost savings because it depends on how many individuals will actually,
When is the
Use-
deadline then? Do you have for that?
I don't know the deadline off the top of my, do you know the deadline off the top of your head, Dr. Talbot?
April 16th.
April 16th is the deadline for the,
So when you adopt the budget, you'll know then.
well, no, yeah, so
Will you
right,
share that number with us,
Yes.
the cost savings?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Megan Messman. I'm, I guess I said, it's very disappointing, right? Obviously, the presentation was really not clear. I mean, I picked up on it. I'm an engineer, so I can follow financial things. I don't know that everybody that would listen in would pick up on it until Caroline got up and made it clear as day. You didn't tell us the impact on our taxes. You've yet to tell us that. Can you tell us what it is? Like if it's a 3.077, which we have to reduce it by $4.6 million, what's the impact on the individual taxpayer?
so Dr. Talbot, I'll give it to you, but I believe that's going to be part of next week's budget presentation though.
And and you're gonna tell us both, and you're gonna tell us what we have and what we need to get down to?
I have to pass it over to Dr. Talbot and then she'll pass it over to Ms. Potts.
So at present, the budget that was discussed tonight
Right,
exceeds the tax cap.
right,
So we're at a difference of $4.6 million.
understood.
And so we need to bring that down by 4.6 million to stay under the tax cap.
Right,
And some of the conversations around transportation and vendors, contracts, all of the meetings that we're having to see what kind of savings reductions we can acquire to help reduce that 4.6 million. And so your question, if we can further clarify to answer it, Ms. Buatsi or Mr. Frazier, can you further answer Ms. Messman's question?
Yes, it all depends on just, just to piggyback on what Dr. Talbot said, which said we're going to meet our legislators. All those, any kind of revenues that we get from them, any kind of funding that we get from them will reduce the 4.6. So unless all those things are clarified, and we have not received, I said we have not received the final state aid figures yet. So when we get the final state aid figures, we'll be able to determine the exact amount that we have to deduct from the 4.6 in order to come up with an amount that we can apply to the tax levy.
so you're not gonna tell us until next week or the 16th?
Wait. So please,
also-
please do not yell out from the community, from the audience. Thank you.
Also, as Ms. Buatsi just said, the numbers are still changing. There might be adjustments to the numbers presented. So it's premature to provide information on the impact to the community on any tax levy number. The budget will be adopted sometime this month. Once that budget is set, then the district can give you an accurate or a very good estimate of what the impact of that budget that was adopted would be on taxpayers, the taxpayers. So right now it's changing. It's very difficult to do that.
Okay, you haven't changed the budget. You've presented the same budget 3 meetings in a row. So you sat up here and you said you're talking about things, but there's no substantial savings in what you're talking about, and you're gonna carry your assumed cost. So you led me to believe that you're not thinking of alternative solutions. So that's why I asked, well, what's this in retirement incentive? Because why aren't you giving a retirement incentive to change, to move out some of the teachers and not have to cut as many teachers in your next round of accessing that we can only project from a $4.6 million difference that you need to all of a sudden make in a week?
So for the retirement incentive, that just transpired tonight. So that was part of executive session. That just transferred. So we don't have a number. We don't know.
But
It all
you have,
depends.
but you didn't, Ms. Johnson, excuse me,
No,
I'm sorry, but at the beginning of the meeting.
Let me finish. We don't know how many teachers will take
I
the
understand that.
retirement incentive. We have no idea. It was just approved tonight. Now, from this point, they will go back and the teachers will come forward. We don't know if it's going to be 1. We don't know if it's 2. We don't know if it's 20. We don't know. We have no idea.
I understand that. I appreciate that, but you didn't tell us that at the beginning of the meeting when you said you have a really hard problem in front of you. You didn't say, but one option that we're looking at is this retirement incentive. You didn't say that. I had to come up here and ask you what it meant, and then you still didn't even tell us much about it, right? So that's
So
all
I'm
my
gonna
point.
just pause it for a second because I have, normally don't say anything. When it comes to that particular agenda item, then that's when I would have read, and I did read the resolution based on what I can say right now in regards to this retirement incentive. So I made it clear to the community that there would be this amendment to the agenda for this MOA. And then I read what was here. Go ahead, you can start the clock back for her when she starts talking.
With regards to Northeast, have you considered not having a principal at Northeast and having, I already hear grumbling behind me. I'm not sure if this is something, but if you had Ms. Highlands covering both of those buildings?
Dr. Talbot, I don't know if that's something that's possible, and it would be the more senior individuals that would cover the building. So you can, go ahead.
So we have explored a number of options as to various buildings across the district, as to consolidations, restructuring, what would it look like? What would the costs look like? And so to answer your question broadly, we have discussed possible restructuring efforts.
But it's not going to be accounted for in this budget? Or you found that there was no reason to proceed with any of that restructuring, or what?
Some of it is still under discussion.
You, at a few meetings ago, you said you were going to try to have like a community meeting and talk to the community. When would that have happened? Why didn't that happen?
So we are still exploring that, and we would love to be able to do that. And if you have a place where you can host us, we would like to come to you. If not, we are looking and actually have some tentative dates to host it here in the district. We were hoping to be able to go into the community and talk with community and have conversations. That doesn't seem to be happening as speedily as we would like. And so we can certainly host the meetings here in district, which is something we have been putting some dates to.
It's like very, very upsetting. You brought it up on February 14th, I think. It's April 3rd. People reached out to you. I reached out to you. There's supposed to be 7 people on the board. There's 5 people here right now. You denied us the 7th seat when it was vacant in November. because I asked for it, because I was the next highest vote receiver, and now we have 5 people making all of these decisions. And you're not even having.
So
the
please
community
do
meeting.
not call out from the audience. Thank you.
The transportation is extremely inefficient. Have you considered a survey to ask every person, every parent in the district, are you planning on using the transportation? Have you done that? Because you have the bus going every which way of Sunday and there's no kid at the bus stop. And I do walk a very far distance, so I can appreciate that. I don't want you to make me walk even further, but have you even considered who even takes the bus?
Dr. Talbot, I'm going to pass that. Is that something you'll be able to answer that question in regards to what she's asking?
I think the survey is certainly a good idea. We do want to get feedback that we can populate from parents around transportation. We are familiar with some of the challenges that we are facing with our transportation, and we would like to remedy those problems. We have been discussing some of those issues in the meetings that we've been having with our contracted transportation services.
Also, if I may add, by law, every student that's eligible for a bus has to be provided a bus, even though they're not taking the bus. By law, we cannot reduce transportation because a student who's eligible is not taking the bus.
Okay, eligible by distance to the building.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So that's nothing then. So, I do think that you should have considered the community meetings because we have a lot of intelligent people in this community that could have participated in this discussion, and we could maybe be in a better place today on April 3rd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just would like to start by saying good evening.
Just, excuse me, just move the
Yeah.
mic up so people can hear you better. Thank you.
Is this good?
Yeah. If not, people won't be able to hear you.
Can I take this out?
You can take it out if you want.
I just wanted to start off by saying good evening to every single one of you.
If you can just share your name, please, so we can.
Lucas Torres, current senior at the high school. And my first question for all of you is, do you remember your senior prom? Because for most seniors, it's supposed to be that one special night, whether it's with a particular person or with a group of people. And it has come to my attention that we've once again closed it off to other schools and districts alike. And I'm here to speak on behalf of both myself and students in hopes to allow other districts and schools to attend prom once again. And I understand that there are some concerns with the high school. And I have spoken to Miss Mary Stevens, principal of the high school. And I have brought a discipline contract from another school that I have previously attended, so that we could possibly modify and make it work for our district alongside this. I have tried to contact and reach out to other districts surrounding Amityville in order to see what rules and regulations they have implemented. So I stand here before you pleading and hoping that we can rethink and implement a new system in order for every senior to have that special night, as once you all did.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you for your comments and
I
for
don't-
sharing.
I have the sheets here as well. I don't know if you would like to.
You can give it
Sure.
to the district clerk and then she'll pass it over.
Jacqueline Cruz Stevenson. So I wanted to follow up on what I mentioned at the last meeting about the list of teachers. I understand it's not going to be an actual list of names, but someone mentioned it earlier, but I didn't hear you say when the minutes would be provided, because when I checked the website, the last minutes that were provided were from February. So when will those minutes be provided? And why has it taken so long?
All right, so typically, to answer the question, I believe, I don't want to speak out of tone. The draft of the minutes will be on the website tomorrow for the March meetings.
And does it typically take that long to post minutes?
Sometimes it may take long, but also being that we have the audio, and I know the audio is not the minutes, but at least it'll allow individuals to, if they wanted to listen to the meeting, but it wouldn't have the minutes. Sometimes it does take long. Sometimes, whether it's here or another district, it does, sometimes they're like 2 months behind. That's typically not we typically are not this far behind.
Okay, but in my opinion, minutes are extremely important because it helps you review what happened in the meeting and helps you prepare for the next meeting. So is there any way that that can be improved so that we as the community can receive the minutes earlier, give us enough time to review them? And also as a board, I would think you would want to see your own minutes.
So usually what happens is I listen to the audio, because sometimes the audio is a lot more detailed than the actually written minutes. But to your point, yes, we'll make sure that moving forward,
Okay.
it'll be done in a more timely manner.
Okay, and another reason I'm asking is because as a board member, I'm just wondering why Mr. Leon wasn't provided with the minutes from that last emergency meeting. He came here not knowing what took place with the scenarios. If he had had the minutes, wouldn't he have known?
And if he listened to the meeting, he would have known as well. So it can go either way. Yeah.
Okay, and my other suggestion, I guess, would be I've been to a couple of these meetings. I haven't been coming always, but I do plan to continue. And I keep seeing a repeat of people coming up with the same questions. People are so frustrated. Why isn't anyone keeping track? And I said this at the last meeting. Why is there no one keeping track of who's coming up, what questions, so that at the next meeting, those same people can be addressed? It just seems like their questions are being ignored.
So to answer your question, the district clerk takes note of the district clerk has to go back to listen to the meeting in order to get the questions. And once she goes back to listen to the meeting to get the questions, then from that point, she can hand it over to the superintendent and it's distributed out to where it needs to go. So it depends on how long it takes to listen to the audio and get the questions down.
Well,
So-
again, as a board, if you all can come together and try to improve on that, because all I see is frustration from the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again, Caroline Fanning. My question is small compared to the big picture of budgetary woes, but on the district calendar, the election was misprinted, which I understand you're going to correct everyone. However, scheduled for the 21st is a middle school spring concert. What's the plan to make sure the kids have a concert and people can vote? My son's in middle school. The concert's like one of the highlights of the year. Grandparents come, the community comes. Want to make sure that that happens and we have a good time.
Dr. Hell, she was asking about the May 21st and the election and.
Okay, it should be able to go on as planned, but we will certainly look into it to make sure that everything goes smoothly.
Because,
It
and
can't
also,
happen on the 21st.
also that, the election takes place in the gym. So we can look into it and
we'll
see
look
if there's another day to do it, because I know with the election, people want to be out and possibly campaign and doing things like that. So we will check and we'll see if it could be possibly moved to another day.
I would request I mean, I'm a parent who just wants to attend the concert, but if I was an orchestra conductor, a band conductor, and you chose to schedule a concert a week early, which seems like the logical thing to do, you need to give them a heads up. It's only 3 weeks away. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't plan on coming back again, but I just want to say a couple of things. When we get up here to speak, you know, with all due respect, you interrupt an awful lot. But a student got up here. I've been attending board meetings for 30 years now. I've never seen a student come to a podium and then just be flat out ignored and not addressed and not spoken to and not answered and just like, thank you. It is so disheartening that like, aren't we all here collectively about students? Isn't this all about students? So a student came up here playing, and by the way, other districts don't do that where you don't allow a date or you don't allow somebody from another school. There might be some rules. They have to sign something, a waiver. Just as he said, I don't know why Amityville does it. It's almost like you don't trust the kids. You know, we really need people that believe in our children and believe in our students, including our seniors. And I really just have to say that was really disheartening. And as a former trustee, I am so upset how that was just handled. I think you could have done better. Maybe reflect on that as a superintendent, as a board president, when a student comes up here to speak. It was pretty awful to watch.
Nicole Hopper, 63 Willis Avenue. So I have a question about reallocating money from the capital fund. Could we possibly think about reallocating that money that we're using for the middle school to possibly pay to redo the Warrior logo?
So, excuse me. In order to answer your question, that we would have to, one, go back and do it a special election. So
Right.
can the money go back from
Right.
the,
Well, it's not taking it and putting it back in the general fund. You're still keeping it in the capital fund, but you would just reallocate it to
So-
a different cause.
so to answer your question, if being that the voters have already approved, the voters have approved what that money is going to be used for. So if
Got
the
it.
money is going to be used for anything else different, it has to go back to the voters again. We cannot just say,
So you're going to use the entire capital fund for the middle school project?
as of right now, yes, unless we go back and do a
But
special election.
wouldn't that be something to think about? I mean, we don't need to completely redo everything in the middle school right away. We need to remove the Warrior logo. That is necessary. And as you said, New York State is not going to allow us to postpone that. We can postpone a bathroom project. We can't postpone the Warrior project.
So I'm almost certain, well, two things. One is, and please correct me, Dr. Talbot or Ms. Boazzi or Mr. Frazier. The money that has been approved, the 2.5 and the 1.3, that's supposed to go to do the work in the middle school, right? In order for us to use that money in any other way, we have to have a whole another election to say, okay, we want, instead of taking, I'll just round it off, I'll just say $4 million. Instead of taking the $4 million to do the following things in the middle school, what we are now proposing is the following, that $3 million will be used for the middle school to do such and such projects, and 1 million would be used for the removal. So that would be something that we could possibly look at.
I
Just can't
understand,
say- yeah.
I understand the process
Yeah.
because we've discussed it
yeah.
at least 3 times tonight. But
Right.
I feel like the community should be involved in that decision. And if it has to come to a vote, then let the community vote. Let us decide where that money should go. When we voted, or I didn't even vote because I wasn't involved at that point, but when the community voted, they didn't have all this information behind it to put that money all towards the middle school. Now we have all this information and all this debt that we're in.
Mhm.
So I think it would be a smart decision, like everybody has been saying, to involve the community and maybe reallocate that money.
Okay.
I mean, I know it's a special vote, but I think it would be a smart idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Just a point, Northeast Elementary School. goes back to the 1700s. That is a landmark for African-American Indian people. That's it. Check your history.
Thank you.
Margaret Chef, Amityville. Ms. Johnson, you just misspoke entirely of almost every meeting that we ask a question for, and you say, okay, I'll take your question and I'll get back to you. And now you're just saying that the district clerk writes it down and takes a question from the minutes and you get back to it. I've stood here at the podium and said, yes, Ms. Schuff, I'll get back to you. Just like you did 2 meetings ago or a meeting ago about asking about the line items that you may or may not take from the budget or whatever. But you basically own those questions. She doesn't own those questions. You own those questions because you're the one coming out of your mouth going, we'll get back to you. We'll have your answer. And I come back here time after time, and it's obvious if other people even talking about it, how frustrating it is that you have no transparency. You say you're going to do something and don't do it. So there's no transparency, no community input that you even so desire. And you're all showing your cards. You just show your cards month after month, and you just can't get it together. You should all be ashamed of yourselves.
Sorry, here I am again, Nicole Hopper. So I'm on several boards, and the way we run meetings is we have a section for old business. Very simple, where we can discuss exactly the things that we discussed in this meeting, next meeting, under a title of old business. This way, the community cannot feel frustrated and their questions will be answered, and you have time to be able to prepare and answer each one of those questions. So I would suggest adding that into our agenda. I don't know if a school board has a particular rules on what they have to have on their agenda, but if we had an old business section, I think a lot of people would be happy to have their questions answered. That's all.
Thank you. Dr. Talbot, do you have any comments you want to make for tonight? All right,
No.
any other board members? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn at 9:16, please?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Juan Leon is first, Leslie Pretz is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Thank you for coming.